Good morning and welcome to this second event of Return to Work Week. I'm Mandy Garner, I'm editor of Working Mums and also of Working Wise, which is for older workers. Today we are focusing on best practice and we have a great employer here, Deutsche Bank, who are going to tell us all about all the policies and practices they have to help women back into the workplace. And we have three great speakers who are going to outline the culture and all the sort of benefits of working for Deutsche Bank, and also in particular going to talk about the returner work that they do. And we have two returners on the call, so that's great. We'll hear real first-hand experiences. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Lucy Bowman, who's Executive Recruiter of HR. If you have any questions, please do enter them in the chat function throughout, and we'll be putting them to all the speakers at the end.
Thank you, Mandy. And thank you for participating today. I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the initiative that we have at Deutsche Bank, where we recognise that taking a career break gives great insights, experience and skills, all of which are extremely useful in the corporate environment. And just to give you a little bit more information about the Returners Initiative, which we have for those wishing to return to working life, and we try to make the transition as smooth as possible. We're looking for talented individuals who have taken a career break across a number of our businesses. So, to think of Deutsche Bank as an investment bank, it's not just in the investment banking function, but also in our support areas, what we call infrastructure at Deutsche Bank, which includes legal, compliance, risk, anti-financial crime, HR, where I work, amongst others. If you have given consent, this link will be shared with you. If not, please go onto our careers website for more information. I just wanted to spend a little bit more time telling you about our Returners Initiative and what's actually on offer. So throughout the process, we offer guidance and coaching on how to prepare for an interview. And as a recruiter of almost 20 years, I wanted to give you a few tips on things that might be helpful, such as researching the organizations that you're interviewing for, looking at the job description in great detail, and also finding out who your interviewer is, perhaps looking at their LinkedIn profile, seeing how long they've been with the organization and what background they've come from. At Deutsche Bank, there will be a recruiter supporting you through the process, so feel free to get to know them and reach out to them with any questions. Know your CV and sort of practice answering competency-based questions using the STAR technique, which is the situation, task, how you action or action that you took and what result you achieved. It's also good to address your career break in the interview confidently. Don't shy away from it. We really want to hear about what you did and any achievements, events, courses, charity work, or personal achievements that you took part in. We also want to know if you kept and how you did it up to date with the area that you work in. And please prepare any questions for your interviewer. Really showcase that you've prepared and that you've got interest in them. Make yourself stand out, and remember, it's a two-way process. As much as they're interviewing you, you're trying to work out whether this is a good opportunity and the right organization for you as well. Once onboarded, we've got a dedicated learning pathway, which is in our development system. You'll also be assigned a buddy to work with you from within the team that you've just joined. I want to touch a little bit about hybrid working that we offer at Deutsche Bank. This will be agreed with your manager, but also can range depending on the area that you work into. So for example, for me as a working mum, I work in the office 40%, so it's 2 days in, 3 days out, and for me that works really well. We also have up to 30 days annual leave, and I have found at Deutsche Bank something that's really useful are other leaves such as adoption, surrogacy, maternity. Our paternity leave has just been extended to 16 weeks as well, which I think is a great initiative. But there are other supportive, flexible, there's a flexible approach to the diversity of people's needs that we have at DB. We also offer 20 days or up to 20 days of emergency childcare per year for children aged 3 months to 8 years, which is been really helpful. Once you join, there's an access to your peer circle and mentoring opportunities from prior returners who can provide additional guidance and support you with any questions you might have. And on that note, I'd like to hand over to one of our returners who's been working at Deutsche Bank, Letitia and Mandy Gardner, who are going to take you through the next part of our talk today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lucy. That's really helpful. And there's quite a few people already asking in the chat about how to get in touch. And we will be putting contact details and things in the chat function. So just keep an eye on that, and so that you can follow up. Brilliant. And on the flexible working that you offer, can you just explain a little bit more about when I know that you've got a hybrid working sort of policy. Is that coming quite recently, and how does that operate?
I think we've always had a hybrid working policy, but I think since the pandemic, it's become very apparent that employees can be just as productive away from the office as they can in the office. And I think this has really revolutionized the whole hybrid working model. And like I said, it's different in sort of different areas, but within the infrastructure area where I recruit into, it's pretty flexible into that 40% is probably the most you can get in terms of the in work, so at the office and out of the office, but we do have instances, in the US, some in the UK as well, where we have agreed 100% remote working as well. So it really depends. I don't want to sort of commit to you will definitely get the 100% remote working, but it does apply to different areas differently. And like I said, it's sort of up to the hiring manager and the team that you'll be working in.
Great. Thanks so much. So now it'd be great to talk to Sharika. Sharika has had 7 years away from her career, and I just wanted to ask about your experience of getting back into the workplace. So how did you find it, and what made you decide to return when you did, or did it take you quite a long time to actually return?
Yeah, so I think I was quite apprehensive. I'd taken 7 years. I had 2 young kids. So I think I felt quite overwhelmed even to start applying for jobs. So initially, I took it like a few months just to say, I'm going to try and see if I can find a job. I'm going to take it easy. I'm not just going to go out to recruiters. So went on LinkedIn, started looking for jobs, and funnily enough, Deutsche Bank was, when I went in, there was information around the flexibility, obviously now the new hybrid working in a sense. I think that kind of made it a bit easy that as a working mom, you're going to feel guilty, like how do you balance your career, working, managing the family, just basics. So you do have that feeling, and especially if you've been out for so many years. And I think with DB, I applied for one of the jobs, and it was probably the second job I'd applied for when I started applying. And I got called quite quickly from the HR team, and they were quite supportive. They wanted to know my story. Why had I taken a break of 7 years? And I think the support they also provided during the interview process and the actual process of how things will move forward. So I think that was brilliant from DB side as well.
Did you have sort of, how long did it go round in your head when you were actually thinking about returning to work? And did you feel, sort of confidence issues about, oh my goodness, I've been doing something completely different, and will I be able to still do all of the things that I used to be able to do? And, like the technology will have changed and all that kind of thing.
I think I was scared, and you do feel, because for 7 years you've had maybe technology, but not technology in a workspace. So like, for example, Skype or Teams, technology's changed. So you do have that, you feel a bit apprehensive. Am I going to manage? I think even applying for the jobs, in that wondering, am I fit enough for this job? Because I had changed. I was a treasury auditor. This was in IT, so totally different career in a sense, and career path, although I did have the risk knowledge, I didn't have everything else. I think that was a bit overwhelming, and how would I be supported? But having the interviews, and even during the interview process, asking the right questions to the interviewer, that if I've obviously not been in the bank, or I've not worked for over 7 years, how am I going to manage my knowledge, and how am I going to be able to grow? And they were quite supportive in the sense where they provided us guidance to say that we're going to help you, we'll train you, we will be there, you know, and I think that made it quite easy and, you know, but feel a bit of relief before I actually come into the bank.
When you started, how was that the first few weeks, and what kind of support did you have, you know, easing back in after so long away?
So I was based in the Birmingham office, and I was allocated a manager in Birmingham. And within the team there, everyone offered their help, just whether it was even just saying, "Where's the kitchen?" in, you know, in the department, and just from the small things, and providing you with stationery or guiding you with where to go, what to do, showing you the websites. I think that helped on the actual onboarding, I'd say. Also, HR organizes like a call with you a few weeks later to help you. They have stuff of like, where new IT, a new joiner, what do you need to do to get on board? We also had a local buddy that doesn't belong to the team. That's someone that takes you around and explains to you things about DB, what they offer, the groups and support groups within Birmingham and in-person groups. So that was quite nice. And my team, which is based in India, Germany, and in the London office, they provided ongoing training support. So that, I can think, overall, the first few weeks, it was a lot to digest, but there was always someone to be there. If I wasn't sure, I'd take in the information, go back and say, "Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that?" So I think that was brilliant.
Fantastic. And what about on the home front? Was that difficult or not?
I think the first day I started work, the kids were like, "Oh, wow, mommy, you've dressed up and you're going to work." And I think for them, it was an adventure, but I think the flexibility was amazing. I think I'm also same as Lucy on the 40%. So I'm 2 days in the office, 3 days at home. And it's been brilliant. I mean, I get into work when we all actually leave together, and they get to drop me off to the train station. So they enjoy it. And it's actually been quite nice, and I think it's fresh for them because mom's also now working, and they like that, and they're like, "How was your day and how have you been?" So I think it's been a nice change for them as well, because for me, being here 7 years at home, it was just like, "Oh, mommy's just, you know, at home, she's there to play with us." And this was a different, "What have you done at work? What did you learn at work as well?" So it was it's been quite fun, I'd say.
Do you have any advice for other people that are in the similar position, maybe some other people who are watching now?
I'd say just go for it. That's my words. You will feel overwhelmed. You will feel scared. But I think with the support and guidance, you definitely will gain that confidence. It might come not very quickly, or it might take time, but definitely the confidence will grow. And I've been just over a year with Deutsche Bank, and I can't say I changed the decision ever. It's been one of the best journeys I've had, and the support's been amazing.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. And now we turn to Letitia. So Letitia Valiba is Director of Leveraged Debt Capital Markets, but she's also a returner manager at Deutsche Bank, and she's a returner herself. So she has that perspective to offer too. So hello, Letitia.
Morning, afternoon.
Morning. Oh, yes, exactly, afternoon. What do you think most people struggle with when they're sort of looking to return to work, in your experience?
Confidence. That's the big word, isn't it? Especially for women with children and having had a previous career and wondering, how am I going to fit in? How am I going to come up the learning curve? What is expected of me? What do I expect of others? I mean, so many questions. And like Sharika said, it's very overwhelming and it's scary at best, I think. And then personally, when I was looking at returning after having taken an extended maternity leave, I wasn't too worried about not being able to pick things up, because that's just how I'm wired anyway, right? When you handed over a baby and you're like, okay, now go and figure out how to be a mom. So I thought, yeah, how could anything else be as scary as this, right? We already well prepared for the unexpected. So from that perspective, I was really looking forward to a new adventure, to use Sharika's word as well. But I think when I arrived at the desk, it was just looking around me, the much younger, much more energetic and new generation of bankers that I hadn't maybe come across and that I had to mingle with. And I think that was the biggest takeaway for me when I returned to work, just to assess the environment and try to fit in a way that, as a more mature person, because I've had life experiences, having had 3 kids and looking around, and none of them were parents. So that was the first thing that made me feel a little bit out of context. But it's really easy to just keep your head down and focus on the task. Don't worry about anything else. And little by little, building relationships with your colleagues, and then you find out that actually they've got no, because they don't know what's ahead of them or what you've gone through, it doesn't really matter. So it was just easier to get back into work itself.
It's interesting, isn't it, the kind of assumptions that you make, because you think people are making assumptions about you because you've had a career break, and then you're making assumptions about what they're like, and that you feel that they're quite intimidating. So yes, that's really good advice. Just take it step by step. What does Deutsche Bank do to help returners get back in your role?
As a manager, I can tell you that I've normalized a lot of the conversations around women, our role, but also our very ambitious, career-focused drive and motivation to do well. And one of the things that when I look at returners' CV, the first thing I want, and sometimes it's not a perfect match in terms of skill sets or experiences, but I want to hear their story. And then from listening to their story, you get a sense of what type of person is behind that story and the CV. And even if it's just one conversation, you can get so much out of it. I learn so much. And then the other person, if I can provide any guidance or advice, even if in the end, it's not a perfect match, it's always very constructive conversation, I find, with this type of candidates, because we're all on the same page. We just get down to business, and we're here to decide whether we want to go forward or not. And as a manager, I would say Deutsche Bank is very open. I find them very authentic and transparent, and that's why I can have the conversations I have with the candidates who are returners. And it's a very, it's a no nonsense environment. I mean, this is a front office, very commercial, very business driven. Everything has a cost attached to it. Everything has to be justified. And I think returners are the right point in their lives where let's just get down to the, nitty gritty business of today and then move on, really. Problem solvers, usually returners are. So let's, what are your concerns? And then we try to discuss and find a way forward. So I think that's what I would say about Deutsche Bank. This really open, transparent environment where it's okay to talk about your fears and whatever you feel awkward about or your concerns, and just voice them. Have the courage to voice whatever is on your mind, and you will be surprised what you get back. And it could be a lot of good advice and good insights and perspectives to make you move forward in whatever you decide to pursue.
Great, that's really, really interesting. And there's questions that are coming in on the chat, and they're sort of asking, how does it actually work in Deutsche Bank with the returners? Are you applied to a specific returner role, or is it you just apply for a role and then there's supported hiring, I guess, support that for returners and recognition of some of the kind of issues that they might face?
I can take that one as I'm in the talent sourcing team, Mandy.
Okay,
so
great.
I would advise, so we do have a returners sort of landing page, if you like, and there are opportunities listed there. But I would advise, even if you're one of the advice, if you're looking perhaps for a part-time job or, flexible working, look at our full-time jobs as well, because sometimes it does take, like Letitia just said, that conversation with the hiring manager. Whilst the role might not be advertised as part-time, it can be done in a part-time manner. So I would say, don't limit yourself to just what we have advertised for returners only. Do look at all of our roles listed on DB Careers as well. And and yet there is, like we said, additional advice on the careers landing page as well, on the returners landing page.
From my perspective, I would say just go for it. Just apply to as many roles as you can and see where you will pick somebody's interest, because that's how you're going to only find out if you put yourself forward first, and then you could get surprised. I think that's what I would say. And Deutsche Bank is so diverse, you just never know. So you might as well take the risk. You've got nothing to lose, everything to gain is one of my mottos. So.
So some people have asked about part-time work. Are most of the roles full-time roles? I know with hybrid it makes it slightly easier to do full-time roles. For some people, some parents find that easier. But are there part-time roles available?
I'll take that one again. Like I just said, I think, important to have that conversation. It might be that there's two people looking for a part-time role that apply to the same role, and we can make it a job share. You just never know. And I think the more people that we have applying and having that interest in us and having that conversation, we can find out. So I think also our system's slightly restrictive, so it can do one or the other. I won't bore you with the admin, but I would 100% still apply for a full-time role and discuss the what your requirements are, either with the recruiter or then with the hiring manager. It really depends what your background is, whether it's whether you've done, I'm just going to say HR or audit or compliance, and it's not been within a bank, it's been a consultancy, or it's been a tech firm, or whatever it might, social media platform. I know there's lots of diversities in terms of the experience, but really it's the skill set. So I know I keep sort of referring back to infrastructure, which is where I work, but also if you've been in a sales function or more of a sort of client facing function, I would again apply and really think about how you bring that out in your CV to get your foot through the door to get an interview. And I think at the interview is you get to impress and sort of link back to what your experience has been to the actual role. I wouldn't let that stop me. And in the past, even in very senior roles, we have hired people from non-financial services to come and work at Deutsche Bank. If you're asking sort of, do we support working permits or visa, whatever it may be, again, yes, it depends on which role you're going into, but generally, yeah, we would definitely have that conversation and work out what your needs and requirements are.
Add to what Lucy just said about applications and different backgrounds, banking and non-banking, different industries and different overseas or not applications. I think it's, as a hiring manager, what I would stress and highly recommend is you've got to be able to articulate why you think you can transfer your skill sets and why it makes sense for the employer that you're applying to have you as a candidate and go through the interviewing process and potentially get the job. And I think it's just connecting all the dots of your past experiences, what you've dealt with, and how you can then apply to the industry you're applying to. So for Deutsche Bank, it's a commercial bank, it's a balance sheet bank, and understanding the differences between what you've done before and what the new employer is looking for. I think that's the biggest challenge for most returners, to be able to, I used to script it out, like literally practice and then just test out with my friends whether it made sense, and if they were convinced that I had a good story to tell and it made sense.
So you generally apply online. Like I said, look at the job description, make sure that there are synergies with what you've put in your CV, to make sure that that hiring manager, once 30, 40 CVs hit their desk, that they know that there is, there's a relevance there. And then, like I said, the recruiter at Deutsche Bank will almost become like your guide, so learn who the recruiter is quickly, and they will, they'll tell you about the interview process, who's in that interview process, who's on the panel, be able to give you information about the team, and what they do, perhaps what what isn't in the job description, and then the interviews tend to be, we do, if you're in the location that you applied for the role, or where the role is, we do like them to be face to face, but sometimes we understand it can't always be, so there is flexibility. If you ask for a Teams interview, I would advise that face-to-face meeting, there's no substitute. If you really want to come and build a relationship with the hiring manager, I would always recommend coming in and having that face-to-face chat. But like I said, there is flexibility. Ideally, it would be a video interview, telephone interview. You can't really build that rapport and really see that person. So I would say, in person or Teams video, if nothing else works. Does that answer that question?
Absolutely. And people are asking also, so one of the questions in here is it possible to get a job at Deutsche US while living in the UK? I guess that applies to any kind of remote job in another country.
I would say no, purely for tax implications, because if you are based in the UK being paid in US dollars, it just wouldn't work in terms of your sort of your income tax and other tax. So I think no. So I think you'd have to at least be in the country of where that job is located, and obviously be connected to the payroll in that country. So just really, I guess, technical tax reasons, that I don't think that would be possible.
In terms of if people are interested and they've watched this and they're interested in applying, I know we're going to put the email in the chat. What would be their next steps? To go to the page, to sort of contact Letitia, have conversation, that kind of thing? How does it, what would be the next steps from here?
Yeah, I think definitely look at the landing page, where we've highlighted a number of businesses that have specifically come to HR and told us, look, we really want to make we really want to support this whole returners initiative. So they've already put their hand up and said, please let us know about suitable applicants. So I would look at that, as a first point of call. I would look at that landing page and see if there are any roles there that have connections to your past experience, or you think actually even through the time off that you've had for your career break, I can actually bring something to the table. So bearing that in mind, look at the different parts of the business, areas of the business, and look at the opportunities there. And like I said before, also look at the sort of main DB careers page as well, just in case not all the opportunities are listed on the landing page for careers for returners.
Okay, great. And in terms of I don't know, sort of feeling that you're ready, because sometimes people have sort of confidence issues and all that kind of stuff, and they're sort of it going round and round in your head whether you feel that you're ready and stuff. What would be your advice? Maybe Letitia, you could sort of talk to that about, I think you said just take the leap. Is it as straightforward as that? Apply,
right? So then you're kind of forced to have the conversations, but I would say practice. That's what I did. And it really helps kind of put aside your fears. And then, I mean, look, the best advice is be yourself, right? Because if you are just yourself, no matter what the outcome, you can't blame yourself for not having given it your all and being who you are. And you would be surprised that just being who you are is all it takes to show how strong, brave, and capable you are as a person, and that you just want to come back to the workforce. And of course, your story is going to allow the other person to connect with you and help you out, or guide you and advise you and get you more in touch with other people. So it's just practice. Reach out, have basic conversations, talk to other returners across multiple industries around you. There are so many now, yeah, just being open and talking to others to try to gather as much information and perspective as possible, so that it's your turn to speak to an employer, that you feel confident about your own story and where you are.
Yes. Did you personally, and maybe Sharika, it would be good to hear from you as well, what did it take you a while before you actually took that leap? And you said you did the practicing and everything, and did you have doubts when you just before you took the leap, but you took it anyway? How did you how did it work for you? Maybe,
I think for
Sharika. Yes.
Yeah, I think for me, it was scary because I think I procrastinated as well. When I was applying, my son had already been in like full-time school by the time I decided, okay, I'm definitely going to apply. But I said I need a few months to sort of sort myself out. And I think because it was more that feeling of going back into work and will I be good enough to do the job? And I think, when you apply, you start looking, and I initially started off on LinkedIn. I didn't really contact many recruiters. I started off on LinkedIn and just looking at some of the pages of the companies to see like, what do they offer? What is it? And that too, I don't think I applied immediately. I waited a while. And then when I remember applying for this job, I'm like, I ain't going to get this. I have like maybe risk knowledge that has a bit to do with what I'm currently doing, but it doesn't have a lot to do with it. And because I've been an auditor, I've mostly been treasury audit, so I don't even have like an experience of IT and that sort of environment. So you do feel scared. And I remember applying, and I said to my husband that night, I said, oh, I've applied for a job today. And he was a bit surprised that I applied for a job because he'd been kept saying, why don't you just apply and see how it is? And like Letitia said, you do need to practice. And he's like, just apply. What's the worst going to happen? You're not going to get the job, but you've at least been for an interview. You've sort of got back into that practice of going into that preparation mode and going into an interview and experiencing it. And I think I just applied and I said, I'm never going to get this. I remember even saying it to him. I said, there's no way I'm even going to get a chance for an interview. And not even a week later, I'd got a call to say that we're calling you for the interview. And I felt like, then I went into a bit of panic as well, that, oh, am I going to actually manage this? And then it was like going onto the website, but the recruiter was really helpful, explained everything. I think that guidance. And I think the first, because my interview was sort of just after COVID, in a sense, so my interview was actually an online interview, but it was great. And I think it's just taking the plunge. Like it is overwhelming, it is scary, but it's about getting into it and just going for it.
Yes, great. Well, because I mean that whole thing of I'm not gonna be good enough and all that kind of stuff, that is a kind of typical thing anyway, isn't it? Sometimes that people sort of that I think there's lots of research that's saying that particularly women are likely to sort of look at the job spec and then just look at the things, focus on the things that they can't do and exaggerate those, and then not apply for something unless they can do 100% of the things. But that's not actually how it works, because there's other things that you can offer that that the obviously Deutsche Bank really kind of saw and had faith in.
Yes, definitely. I think even when I got interviewed, both the recruiter as well as the person interviewing me wanted to know, why was I off for 7 years? What was the reason? What was I doing? And it was, there was a few questions based on what the break was about, not about what I'd done 7 years before that, but what was I doing in the break? Were you raising your kids? Did you do any other activities? What were you about? And I think that was a really good thing in a sense, because you can speak about that because you feel a bit more confident of what you've done in that 7 years, and the break can be different. The industry's changed, people have changed. It is overwhelming. I think I've said that a few times, that it is very overwhelming taking that step. But I think once you take it's everything just seems to open up in a sense.
Yes, I can imagine that whole sort of, the technology has gone, everything has changed. Everything's changing all the time, isn't it? That's the thing that you have to remember, that even though, you have had that gap, everybody's in the same boat in a way, because we're all having to change all the time at the moment.
Yeah. Yes, I think, it's embracing that change, like you said, Skype and Teams, and it was like coming back to a totally virtual world. I mean, all my team are not based in the office I am in, they in London, India, Germany. And even to have the calls, they ping you over, and like people introduce themselves over Teams, and we get a ping over and say, I'm so and so, and like people want to know you. And I think that's been amazing, like in that sense. So you have to embrace all the change. It comes with going into the office only twice a week as opposed to maybe 5 times a week, having virtual meetings, and then even interacting with a different team or wider team when you go into the office. And you actually look forward to office days. My kids always say, do you make friends at work? Do you have any friends at work? Because they know you're always constantly on virtual sort of meetings. And it's quite good because like, how do you know the person in India? Or how do you know the person in Germany? Like, how do you speak to them? So I think that it has that change, the way technology is. It's brilliant that we can actually work in that way across the world in a sense.
Yes, everything's very international. And
Yes.
Letitia, is this what your experience as well when you're talking to, people, returners, that they're having, that they're often kind of thinking, oh, I'm not good enough or whatever. It's just do you have to encourage them to just jump?
Yes, it's the confidence, isn't it? The major blocker for most returners. And like you said, Mandy, I think it's to do with all your rumination in the head, the stories that you tell yourself versus what the reality is, which is that you're highly capable. Look, the mere fact that you took a career break, that was already brave and courageous. And then when you decide to come back, that's another very brave and courageous decision. So I think people have to realize that they need to look at those life decisions as such, that you already dealt with uncertainty, you've already gone through it, right? So there's nothing different that you're doing now because you want to come back to the workforce. And then it's, I think it's then to just gauge, like Lucy said too, it's an opportunity for you to, through conversation, find out whether there's a fit. Are they good enough for me? And am I good enough for them? It goes both ways. Okay, so it's just the way it works, and gain that confidence that you are probably skilled and you've got maturity, you've got experience and perspectives that others may not have, and that contributes to the diversity of thought and the success of a team. And so you've got something to offer. So you've got to base your confidence on the fact that you've got something to offer, and it's supply and demand, and it's you've got skills to sell, and Deutsche Bank, as a buyer of skills and employer, is looking for a match. So you're totally entitled to have those conversations, to apply to as many jobs as you can, and see where they end. But yeah, confidence in most of the returners and their concerns around, am I going to be enough, is what comes across in their conversation. So as a hiring manager, I would say you probably need to deal with that aspect of your profile before going into conversation, so that you take control of the conversation rather than the employer taking and guiding you through their line of questioning and the way they want you to come across. And if you don't, then it's a no. So just take control, be who you need to be, and have your story and your skill sets and what you've got to offer in display.
Yeah, great advice there. I think it's so important also, as you say, to sort of role model it, do the questions with people about, what you have to offer. So like find somebody that you can kind of, bounce those questions off and prepare for before you start. But, you have a lot more to offer than you probably think. You probably have done yourself down a lot. And as you say, it's more of a kind of negotiation. You have to try and find out whether it's a good fit for you just as much as the employer does. So that's great advice. Well, thank you so much, everybody. It's been really, really, really interesting. As I said, there's in the chat, there's a link to the careers page, and also to an email that you can email to find out more. And I know there's been loads of questions in the chat, so we'll try and sort of address some of those as well. We also at Working Mums, on our job seekers tab at the top of the home page, you can sort of click into that and it shows you kind of returner programs and other kind of return to work sort of information as well. And we have some videos going up later on today on the Return to Work website. So please check those out. Thank you so much, and look out for all the other different events that we have coming up every day this week. Thank you.